The DICE Global Immersion 2025 is a 5-day program for African executives focused on tech, business, and creative ecosystems, which took place in the two cities of Los Angeles and Atlanta in the United States between June 23rd and 27th, 2025. The program aimed to connect participants with global leaders, explore cutting-edge technologies such as artificial intelligence, and facilitate strategic partnerships for sustainable growth. Joining us now to have a chat around all of that is Dr. Juliet Ehimuan, the founder of Beyond Limits and former director, Google West Africa, to discuss the best ways through which the targeted business audiences from Africa can leverage on the global insights from that event. Good morning, Dr. Juliet. Good to have you join us on
Thank
the morning
you for
show.
having me.
All
Absolutely.
right. So you're fresh from LA
fresh.
and Atlanta.
Yes, freshly minted.
All right. How was the program this year? I know that is an annual event, and
Yes.
it looks to me like from what we have seen so far that Nigerians are getting involved, more and more. How was this year's experience, and what were the takeaways?
Yes, it was amazing. And so the basic premise for it was just really facilitating, like you rightly said, facilitating knowledge sharing and partnerships between leaders in Africa and leaders in other ecosystems. The world is increasingly connected. And what happens in any part of the world affects what happens in our market. And so it's important to foster these collaborations, share ideas both ways. It was a two-way street. Share ideas and see opportunities for win-win partnerships. We took a delegation of leaders from the private sector and the public sector as well. It was great to have the Minister of Arts, Culture, Tourism, and the Creative Economy with us from the public sector. Yes, Minister Hannatu Musawa, and a team of leaders from across different sectors. And for this immersion, we visited key technology companies, looking at how the cutting-edge technology is being used, different use cases that can really accelerate organizational growth and drive transformation. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. It was great to see robotics in action in e-commerce at the Amazon warehouse, where we just really saw a lot of developments that show really how that organization has been able to grow and effectively. It was great to also just meet with the diaspora. We had a few engagements with investors, with diaspora, with professionals. And on both sides, it was very enlightening to just really discuss the developments that are happening in this market and the opportunities over there, and to see some of the great work that Africans in the diaspora are working on, and look at collaborative partnerships. One of the great things as well is the fact that we actually left with some very tangible follow-ups around things that can be done from a public sector perspective as well as from a private sector perspective.
That's where I'm going to. I mean, that sort of partnership and the sort follow-up that you engaged. I mean, what would you say was the most significant in terms of partnership beyond this AI meetings that you had with Microsoft? Or
yes,
Google?
Absolutely. So I mentioned that the Minister of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy and Tourism was with us. We had meetings with a number of organizations in the creative space. So for example, we met with Golden Voice. They are the producers of Coachella, which is the largest music festival in the US. And there were conversations around partnership. If we're trying to drive tourism, such large-scale events are really great drivers for pulling people in. So that was one classic example. We met with the state departments in Georgia and also the mayor of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is set to host the next Olympic event. And so we had conversations around that, what it takes to really pull together these large-scale events. And in Georgia, you may know that Atlanta is a sister city to Lagos. So there were conversations as well around collaboration and public sector partnerships. On the private sector side, we had organizations really engage around transforming their businesses through artificial intelligence, machine learning, being able to speak directly with solutions architects in various organizations to really help ignite the work, the transformation work they were doing in their organizations, and establish some key follow-ups around that. And finally, we went to the Tyler Perry Studios again, speaking on the creative side. And that's just an incredible facility, and a lot of work around producing Black movies has been going on there. So there were conversations as well around having more of our creatives feature in their productions, but also looking at collaborating on this side. And so there were quite a few tangible engagements in that nature.
Amazing. Okay, so I know that for the Nigerian creative space specifically, there are a lot of different events that happen globally where we have a lot of executives who try to benefit from these. I know the Cannes Film Festival just happened.
Yes.
And we saw lots of Nigerian creative executives go over to Cannes, have several meetings for different purposes, whether it's the awards side of things or like the Golden Globes or the Oscars or the festival side of things like TIFF and the likes. Now my question is, for the DICE Immersion program, what does it cost to be a part of it? And how would you say this is different from a typical Nigerian traveling to another country to have an experience like they would at Cannes? Because at the end of the day, these events as well still foster the same type of conversations. They're more curated, albeit as opposed to a singular trip. But these events still foster the same conversations. These events still bring together these people. So juxtaposing the cost with the value, how would you respond to that?
So given the size of the opportunity, we can't have more than enough of these events. And there's something to be said for a curated experience where you're meeting with these organizations one-on-one. It's great to go to a conference, and there's a space for that. It's good to go to a conference or a festival where there's so many people and you sort of navigate your way and all of that. There's value in that. But there's a different context where you're actually meeting with the organizations, the leaders, and having very focused conversations. And and that's what this was about. It was really making sure that we curated organizations that spoke to some of the areas and use cases that participants were interested in, and we were able to really foster those very intimate conversations about opportunity, about real partnerships, about solutions, and as I mentioned, we have some follow-up opportunities around that. So I think there's certainly a place for learning from other ecosystems in this very focused way. This immersion was to Los Angeles and Atlanta, but we're going to have immersions to other ecosystems as well. One of the things that we're doing with DICE, which is digitally an acronym for Digital Innovation and Creative Excellence, and a platform for bringing stakeholders together in the tech, business, and creative ecosystems, is ensuring that we can share ideas that can accelerate growth. There should be a sense of urgency in how we approach economic development and growth. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot that needs to be done. And so just really being very intentional about bringing the right people, not a broad spread, so less about breadth, more about depth and focus. Bringing the right people together to have very focused conversations on specific things and talking about this particular area of collaboration, what would it take for this to happen, right? That's the difference. And we're going to be doing this with other ecosystems as well.
All right, talk to us a bit more about, I appreciate the creative aspect that you spoke about and the involvement of the Honorable Minister Anatu Musawa, but then tech is also very high on what you did, and given your own experience with Google, how was participation this year? Some people are beginning to say that maybe the whole noise around AI, that maybe things are overrated, particularly for Africa and Nigeria, where we still need a lot of people to get to work, but then everybody's talking AI and they're like, for how many people are you going to get out of job? What was the experience like this year when it comes to the issue of AI? And then I was going to ask you, what was participation like given the uncertainty and apprehensions around visas, being turned back in America and stuff like that? Do you think that might discourage participation ultimately?
Right. So first of all, I can assure you that AI is not overrated. And even more importantly, for Nigeria and Africa, we need to lean in. I think technology platforms like AI, machine learning, can really help to create a level playing field and accelerate growth. And we've seen that happen in the past. With mobile technologies, we were able to leapfrog fixed lines And if you look at mobile innovation in Nigeria and across Africa, it rivals anywhere else in the world.
Sure.
You know, mobile payments in Kenya, M-Pesa, and even the mobile payment solutions we have today in Nigeria. And I think that's the beauty of these technologies, that we've seen artificial intelligence being used in agricultural farms, cassava farms, for example, to predict diseases. And one of the examples that we saw, BlackRock, it's an organization that manages over $11 trillion in assets. And they use an AI-powered software, which they demonstrated to us. We saw it live, right? To be able to manage that volume of assets. And so, if we're really looking to accelerate growth in this space and create jobs at scale, I think these technologies have something to play. And, you mentioned about, job creation and all of that. One of the things with these technologies is not so much about replacing jobs, especially in this environment. It's more about, redirecting the jobs and also making people more efficient, right? So like in the Amazon warehouse where we saw robotics in action, you saw robots doing a lot of manual tasks that people didn't have to do, but there were still a lot of people on the shop floor, and in the warehouse. But what they were doing was more elevated, and the capacity was improved because they were able to handle, thousands, or perhaps millions of orders within a shorter time. So that's what we should be thinking about, leaning in and seeing how we can apply these technologies to take us from where we are more quickly to where we're trying to get to.
That's
You
great.
didn't talk about the visa part?
Yes, so
As an immigration officer.
exactly.
Steve, have there been issues?
For those of us who might be interested next year.
Is there like a bonus, like to say, oh, you know what, we're going to help you sort that out, no worries?
Unfortunately, we can't give that, but we can give, supporting letters to say this is what we're going for. And of course, we have evidence to show, what this is about, from a documentation perspective and even in video format, right? So, hopefully that should be helpful. But, there's still a lot of collaboration that is possible between both markets. All the people we met with, the diaspora as well as other leaders and innovators, they were very excited to meet with the delegation. They were very grateful to have the opportunity, and there were real conversations around what can we do together. There were some that there's a lot of interest in Africa, but not everyone understands how to navigate this market. And so us showing up in that way just really helps to demystify, helps to answer questions around, security, or what does it take to win in this market and things like that. And people were very positively responsive towards this and happy to collaborate.
That's amazing, and you've spoken a lot. And in terms of economic development now, I'd like to know how important it is for these African businesses not just to consume global innovation, but also to contribute to these sort of innovation that you have rightly put out now. And how can your company foster this sort of contributions that African businesses can make?
Absolutely. There's a lot of great talent in Africa, and there's innovation happening in Africa. The way we've positioned this immersion, it's not a one-way street. It's not like we're just coming to learn and absorb, and we're also coming to share with you what's happening in this market, what the opportunities are, because there are opportunities for win-win partnerships. And to your point about how we can go further and what we're trying to do, what we find is that there's a place for global collaborations. If you look at the investments across the startup space in Africa, a lot of the investment is coming from outside the country and outside the continent, right? And so there's an important space that global markets occupy. And as I mentioned, that the world is increasingly connected. So if we're looking at creating more opportunities for investment into our startups, if we're looking for opportunities for our creatives to get more global collaborations and support, if we're looking for interventions in different spaces, then it's important that we foster these collaborations with global markets, with investors, with innovators, and we're able to share ideas and knowledge in that way. And that's part of what the DICE platform is meant to do. It starts locally, so we have mixer events where We bring key stakeholders across business, policy, the startup space, investments, foreign missions, and multilateral organizations. We bring them together in the market around specific themes. So we've run 3 successful mixers in Lagos. One was focused on monetization and commercial success for the creative economy. Another was focused on business expansion powered by tech, right? And we brought the relevant stakeholders together. So that's one thing, fostering those conversations and surfacing talent and innovation in this space, but also doing that with global markets so that we can, so that the impacts can go further and we can accelerate growth and bring in more resources. We keep talking about foreign direct investment, really making sure that we are creating a platform that helps people who are interested to engage.
I was just saying to myself that, lots of businesses right now, whether in the creative space or in tech, or albeit a business who feels like they could benefit from some form of collaboration international, is probably watching this and thinking, what is the hunger out there? As someone who's been there several times, how would you assess the interest of some of these organizations to collaborate with a lot of businesses within Africa, especially Nigeria, considering the restraints oftentimes that they face with regards to policies that are in place at this time? How would you assess their interest in wanting to collaborate?
Absolutely. So what we're finding is that there's a lot of interest, but exactly like you mentioned, some of the perceptions around the regulatory environment or even things like security are a deterrent. So people want to engage with the market, but they don't necessarily know how to. Last year, so even outside of the Immersion, last year I spoke at Africa Day in Austria, right? And it was just very impressive to see the level of interest in Africa. A lot of it was a whole room full of people, like over 500 people interested in Africa, right? And there are questions because, when you look at the global space, markets are shifting. Where is the new frontier? Where are the untapped opportunities? Africa is the next frontier. And so, businesses are actively looking to Africa. And the responsibility is for us to make it easy for these businesses to engage, to really surface, to help people navigate the market. And that's what we're trying to do. And certainly on this DICE Immersion, I mentioned all the people we met with were so interested in Africa, and not just interest, without commitment. There was real commitment and very tangible conversations around, can we do this together? I have been actually looking at this market. There were some creatives that actually formed, looked to form partnerships to do projects in Africa. We've seen global collaborations in the creative space, with Afrobeats and a lot of our creative content. And I think that this is just the beginning. I think if we lean in more intentionally, a lot more is possible.
All right. I think I heard you say earlier that there's the possibility that LA might host the next Immersion. Did you say that?
No, Olympics.
Okay.
Olympics,
The
yes.
Olympics. So
Yes.
Where I was going was brilliant idea, brilliant initiative. But then is DICE looking at other markets and economies, the European market, for example, the Asian market, the South American market, for example?
Yes.
So that people are not fixated on just the United States, if you
Oh,
know that.
absolutely. So one of the great things we've done with the DICE platform is build relationships with different foreign missions. During the last DICE mixer in Lagos, DICE 3.0, which was focused on business expansion, we had 12 consulates in attendance. We had a panel discussion with 4 consul generals. And, one of the things that we're trying to do is to see ecosystems where there's some synergy, where there's relevance around specific areas of growth and development, and engage with them. So the US is a starting point, but we're going to be looking at other ecosystems as well. This will be an annual thing, but annual in multiple locations. So, we'll be looking to go to parts of Europe. We'll be looking to go to Asia, because the Asian market as well offers a lot.
It is
in
large.
terms of innovation, in
large.
terms of, synergy with what we have.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be, and we're likely to do Asia next year, in addition to the US.
Okay.
All right. On that note, would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show this morning. And, it's been quite educative at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.